I see that our featured celebrity speaker is in the house. And so thank you. Butta, are you with us today? Are you ready?
I am here. How you doing?
I'm good, girl. How are you?
I can't complain.
You can't complain. Butta be Rocka. I mean, I think the best way that I can introduce this woman, other than a incredible mother, a heart-centered woman, she is going to share her story. So I don't want to lean into that, but TV producer, director, singer, and full all around gorgeous entertainer. And I know that we have a reel that is going to do the talking for us. So I'm thinking if my team is ready to put the reel on the screen, are we ready to go? We are ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
international superstar, Miss Butta B. Rocka!
Hello, everyone. My name is Olethea Robinson, professionally known as Butta B. Rocka. I'm an international top charting recording artist, as well as a producer, director, screenwriter, and actress. My new film, Finding the Perfect Guy, is currently streaming on 16 platforms and is translated into 11 languages. I'm honored to have received the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm a 2-time best-selling author and playwright, as well as the host of Transparency Talks podcast, which airs on 6 syndicated international stations in London, Italy, Japan, Nigeria, South Africa, and Canada. I'm also a model. I've had the pleasure of working with Kanye West, Janet Jackson, TLC, Akon, Nas, Collective Soul, Zac Brown, to name a few. I was recently featured on Billboard's Hip Hop magazine. I was also a guest speaker at the SAVE Summit and was added to the Billboard, which was featured in Times Square with Miss Lynn Whitfield, MC Lyte, Mark Cuban, and Gene Simmons from KISS. I performed at the City Gala with Wesley Snipes, Randy Jackson, Mario Lopez, and Les Brown. And afterwards, Mr. Brown became my mentor, and I worked for him for 8 months as his personal assistant. I also performed at the LA2 with Jack Black, Alyssa Milano, Sheila E., Bootsy Collins, and I came on after the legendary Miss Dionne Warwick. Last, I am the CEO, founder of Artists Rock the Mic Foundation. My mission is to bring creatives together in the music, film, and entertainment industries to impact change in the communities across the world. We work to encourage and advocate through the influences of the arts. We strive to integrate educational programs, benefit concerts, and charitable drives, giving back to the homeless college students. That's a little bit about myself, and I look forward to working with you.
Well said, well done. Welcome to the Stand Up, Speak Up, and Show Up Yes You Summit. We so appreciate you being here and taking some time today to share.
Thank you so much, Deb, for having me. I wasn't going to miss this. I fly out to Miami tomorrow. They wanted me to come out today. I said, nope, I need to be here so that I can show up and stand up.
All right. All right. Look, let's get right into it because more than likely you've got some packing to do. It was such a pleasure to have you on the Mission Accepted show, and I got to hear a little bit of your story, and I'm still in awe. You've come up against some roadblocks. You've come up against some roadblocks. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Oh my goodness. When you say roadblocks, I have come up with so many roadblocks in my life. I began singing at a very young age, at the age of 4. I started professionally singing at the age of 13, began working with Usher and Bobby Brown's camp and everything. We all kind of like started at the same level. Akon had just was just coming out and everything. And I was headed to my attorney's office. We was on the second offer, and I ended up getting into a car accident, which left me drinking from a straw for 6 months. And it was a real blow because it took me a year to come back out. And when I did, the deals were no longer on the table. Warner had they have rebranded and got new people. And Sony had just signed a young lady that was younger than me, because at that time they were signing the 13 and 14-year-olds. And so I went to the third label, Island Records, and the guy literally told me that. He said, I missed the boat. And here I am, 18 years old, and I've missed the boat of getting my record deal. So it was devastating, to say the least. I went into a depression. My friends, their careers began, taking off. They started winning Grammys and doing all these amazing things. And not that you have to, but no one said, hey, let me take you with me. You was rocking with me before. Let me at least put you on backgrounds. Let me put you on a remix, something. Nobody said that. So naturally it started getting into my head. And then I did start thinking, well, maybe I did miss the boat. Maybe I am too old. Maybe I'm getting too big. All these things just started happening in my mind, where I started giving the self-doubt. And that's when I went and got a job, got married, picket fence, got kids, and started doing that. It was a major blow. And I began doing backgrounds in the studio for TLC. And this is one of the pivotal moments for me. I was in the studio with Dallas Austin and a couple of other people, and there was a producer there. There was a guitar player there that was working on one of the songs. And he came in, and I'm going to tell my age. He said, hey, man, I got this cassette tape. I would love for you to hear it because, I'm also an artist. And so they said, all right, man, leave the cassette tape here. So he left the cassette tape. And when he left, they talked about him. They was laughing, and it was like, people need to stay in their lane. You play the guitar, just play the guitar, man. And, they was talking about him. And all I remember in that moment was thinking, if I stay here, this is how they're going to view me, and not to say anything's wrong with doing backgrounds, because I do backgrounds, but that's not where I wanted to stay. It was just some place that I was landing in until I found my ground, my bearings and everything. And so that was setback number one. That was, it was so detrimental for me, because you're 18 years old and this is all I've ever wanted to do, was be on stage singing and doing what I love to do, because the crowd and the energy and everything, it's no better feeling. But yeah, that was a major setback. You want me to keep going, or?
Oh, you keep going. You keep
Okay.
going.
Okay. So yeah, that was setback number one that really, was hard for me. It was actually AJ Alexander, who used to be co-manager for Usher, and he was also my co-manager, who saw me one day at an open mic, and he was like, you should start your own band. And so I started my own band, and I began performing. I did my very first show. I don't remember what my first show was, but I did a show for CSAC, and it was PJ Morton and all of these big people was there. At that time, they weren't big. So I did this show, and from there was a guy there that saw me, and they put me on the show at Centennial Park. Centennial Park was my second show, and it was in front of 5,000 people. So I believe if you're going to do it, go grand, go how you envision yourself. Again, nobody had seen me perform in a long time, and everything. And this was like my big entrance to the world. So I made sure that I had, from the dancers, the background singers, I had a huge band, I had the horn section, because I envisioned myself as a big superstar. Anytime I go out, I make sure that you remember my name. So I went out, did the show. 10 minutes after I got off stage, a guy came up to me, asked me, was I interested in going over to Africa? So I told him yes. I had been getting offers before, but this one made sense because it was performing for 4 nights out of the week, 2 sets, and then the weekends you had off, and they would send me over to other parts of Africa during the weekend, and everything was paid for, from the the transportation, the cell phone, you got your room. I mean, everything was covered, food. You didn't have to, so it made sense. And they brought over family members to come and stay with me for about 2 weeks. So back on task. I ended up going over to Africa. And from there, I'm performing in front of Prince and I'm performing in front of ambassadors and all these people. And one thing led to another. And a person came up to me while I was performing and they asked me would I be interested in doing cruise ships. And initially I said no, because from what I know with cruise ships, the singers, they're sleeping on the bottom of the ship and they have to perform all the time. And I just wasn't interested. I wasn't interested in it. And they said, no, we want to hire you as a guest entertainer. And I said, okay, well, what's that? So as a guest entertainer, they would fly me out. I would go out for a week. I would do two 45-minute sets in the main theater with their orchestra. And the rest of the time you're taking pictures and kissing babies and having a good time. So I started doing that and that was going good. I did that for almost 5-6 years. I've done probably well over 40 plus cruises with Holland America, Royal Caribbean, Seabourn, Norwegian. And I've seen some amazing places, Spain, and I mean, all these different places and all these different cultures and everything. And that was going really good. And when I wasn't on tour, I was doing land shows, either overseas, out of state, or here in Atlanta. So fast forward, I was getting ready for a show in Qatar, but I was here in Atlanta at a rehearsal. And as I was dancing, I pivoted too much and my knee popped and I stuck my arm out to catch the fall. And I ended up dislocating my shoulder and I had a torn meniscus and a torn ACL. But at that time, I still had contracts that I had to uphold. One being I had to go to Vegas where I performed with Bill Walsh. Well, I didn't perform. Yeah, I performed. He spoke. I performed with Bill Walsh. And then I had to go to LA, and that's the show that I did with Les Brown and Mario and Wesley Snipes and Will Ferrell and all these big people. I couldn't turn that down. And then I had to go to Mexico and Chile. By the time I came back from Chile, my knee was completely blown. And I had to have surgery. And the surgery, because I decided to wait, it went from a partial tear, which would have been 6 weeks recovery, to a full tear, which ended up being a year recovery. And so that's another setback that was, oh my God, it was absolutely horrible because at the time, my oldest son was in the 12th grade. My youngest was in the 11th grade. Music has been all I've been doing since 2007, full time. And now I've just been told when I woke up from the surgery, oh yeah, you're going to be out of commission for a whole year. So you talking about things running through your mind. I mean, it was so many things that was going on in my head and I just felt defeated because I didn't know how I was going to pay for everything. I didn't have a plan B. There's no plan B when you're a singer. Well, it wasn't for me at that time. No plan B. So it was just like, oh my God. And then also at that moment, my ex-husband, because my son had just turned 18, he stopped helping me. So I'm not working and he stopped helping me. It was horrible timing. And so, yeah, it was a major setback. But what helped me get through that was I ended up getting a phone call from Les Brown, called me when I had just got home because he had been checking on me and everything. And I got to tell you a story of how I met him, but I'll go back to that. But so he called me on the phone and I was sitting in bed and I just remember I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And he says, hello, this is Les Brown. And I said, hey, Mr. Brown. And he's like, well, Terrence just told me, what the doctor said and everything, but I want you to know that this setback is a setup for something greater. And I ain't gonna lie, at that moment, I really wasn't trying to hear that. If I'm being honest, I wasn't really trying to hear it. But I said, thank you so much. I didn't understand what it meant at that time because music has always been my number one. And I'm gonna stop there and let you ask something else because I know I can rant.
Well, I think that's an interesting place to leave off, because I don't know about anyone else, but full transparency, there's times that you hear things that you don't want to hear, or there's times where we don't have a plan B, or there's things that happen that you're just not prepared for in life. Right?
Yeah.
There's news, there's things, we've all probably heard it or experienced it ourselves. And when you're in passion as much as you are, and you've already had your comeback, you had Sony go, sorry, do you know what I mean? And you've already built your comeback once, then you're like, wow, so look I know. Can you tell us the turning point that led you from music to film? And you kind of had led into it. We've got this Les Brown kind of in your ear. Then you start hanging out with him and working with him for a bit, and then take us there.
Yeah, it ended up turning out to be a true blessing. So when I was in LA, I ended up so my show was that Sunday, and I came early because I didn't want anybody to know I was hurt. I didn't want to tell anybody that I was injured. So I had on the long gown, I had on flats, and if you know me, I wear heels, but I had on flats, the sparkly kind, so that I could make sure I looked really cool and everything. So anyway, I ended up coming down for breakfast and I met Les Brown. He was there. And at that time, all of these people start coming over to me because they knew that I was performing. Jeff Hoffman and the guy from Constant Contact, the owner. And I mean, it was just all these people. So he was kind of intrigued, like, okay, who is this chick? Right. And so I walked over to him and I said, Mr. Brown, it's a pleasure to meet you. And everything. And I said, by the way, Dr. Bartlett told me to tell you hello. He said, you know Dr. Bartlett? I said, yes, sir. He says, well, how do you know Dr. Bartlett? I said, well, she flew me to Bahamas to perform for the Prime Minister. He says, oh, he says, well, can you give me her number? Because I don't have it anymore. I said, yes, sir. So I gave him the number. So that's key number one. Make sure you tell him the truth. Because right. So I gave him the number and he says, you live here in LA? I said, no, sir, I live in Atlanta. He says, well, I live in Alpharetta. Take down my number. Now I'm, hype inside. I ain't gonna lie, but I'm trying to be calm in front of him. And so I take down his number so slowly, take down his number. We say our goodbyes. I walk to my table. And as I'm walking, I accidentally dialed his number. I did. I accidentally dialed him. And so when I got back to my room, I'm getting ready, calming my nerves to get ready to perform at this big event. And he calls me on the phone. He says, hello, this is Les Brown. I said, oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Brown. I called you by accident. He says, well, you called me by accident, but I'm calling you on purpose. And he says, are you staying in the hotel? I said, yes, sir. They have me in the hotel. He says, well, I am too. I want you to come to my room. I want you to meet my daughter so that I can get her to start making some gowns for you. I said, oh, okay. I have a designer, but I would love to meet her. And so I went to his room. We exchanged information. Well, we had already exchanged information, but we kept talking and everything. And so when he got back to Atlanta, he would call me from time to time, talking about music and instrumental, projects and different things like that. And we began growing a friendship. And then when I injured myself, he called me and says, well, while you are out of work, why don't you work for me? And I said, I haven't worked for nobody in a long time. I'm gonna have to really think about this. And I think he was surprised that I said no at first. I ain't gonna lie. I think he was very surprised. And then he asked me a second time. He says, well, look, again, you're not doing anything right now. You can't do anything. So you might as well help me, because I have a degree in computer informations. I also have a degree in marketing and PR. And I said, okay. So during that time, I was able to learn a whole lot of, things from him and everything. And it helped me to really get my skills up with speaking. And every time you would say, or he would charge me $10 and make me send it over to him and everything by Zelle. So it was a very teachable moment. And when I injured myself and I had to figure out what else to do. It was a very pivoting moment because I really had to figure it out. But because of all of those setbacks, I was able to do my book that became an Amazon bestseller in 7 hours. Um, I was able, I just said, I
I'll take
was
the $10, especially if it's yours.
right, right. I was able to do the podcast, which I started the podcast in 2020. And that was another pivot, but that was because I had already been out of commission for a whole year with my knee injury. And now I am still can't work because it's 2020 and COVID has just happened. I had just got a contract and got released from the hospital or from the doctor's office to be able to go back on tour in April of 2020, but COVID shut everything down in March of 2020. So now here I am again with another setback, like, oh my God, so I still can't go on tour. You know, it's cool working for him, but I'm ready to get back on stage. And so what ended up happening was started the podcast. My podcast just started taking off. I ended up getting picked up by 6 syndicated stations in London, Italy, and Japan, and all these places. And I was talking to a lot of people in the music industry, and I ain't gonna lie, that kind of became not boring, but it was a conversation where, yeah, I've worked with such and such and such and such, and then the next person, I've worked with such, and so the conversation started sounding the same. So then I started incorporating talking to people in marketing. I started talking to people in any of the fields that I was personally doing, and then I also always wanted to do a film. I have wrote a play before. My play had 6 national recording artists, including Christopher Williams, in it. And it did really good. But what I learned very, very quickly is having 6 national recording artists. I'm an international recording artist that tours on the regular. All of my band tours with multiple people, and every background singer that I had tours. So when it came to signing a contract and going on doing a 6-month tour of the play, it was impossible to get all of us to be able to, sign up and be committed to being able to do it. So I wasn't able to continue it. So here I am. I'm like, and I had did that with someone who has been in the industry. And so I got to learn how to do formats, how to, create the dialogue, because it's completely different writing a song, which is one person, where you're either singing about yourself or you're singing it and, singing it about someone, to now writing a play where you got people dialogue and interconnecting and everything. So I said, you know what? I want to write a film. I had never written a film before, but I knew I wanted to write a film, and I wanted to write something that was relatable, that I knew about. And when I got divorced, I attempted to go into the dating world, and the horror of this new dating world was something that I was like, oh, I don't like this at all. So that was what my first film was about. It's called Finding the Perfect Guy, where her girlfriends start, setting her up to go on all these different dates and everything like that. So that's how I got into doing films. I dove right in. Actually, I would say this, Deb, every single thing that I do, I dive.
Mhm. That's a good way to put it, right? Everything you do. And I'm hearing multiple yeses, right? Even though you're standing in a room and how you're talking to Les, you got to wonder, it's almost like you can feel your nervousness. Like, for someone like yourself, who people being in your presence would make them nervous, and oh my gosh, and what do I say, and how do I walk up to her? You also had that experience, right? How did you navigate that? Like, I think it's difficult, right? It's difficult to approach people that you have at a higher accolade, particularly when for you, it's like, oh, the world has said that they're in a different place than you are. How did you navigate that?
It's really hard to navigate that because, you become intimidated. I'll speak for myself. I was a little intimidated when I started working with Les, and I'm seeing all of the people that's calling him. And I mean, he has some high, big speakers, Nicole and Tony and Eric. And I mean, all these major, I can call them by their first names because I know them.
I love it. Love
But
it.
right. He's had all of these, he was having all of these big conversations and everything. And I was definitely intimidated because I was in a room that wasn't familiar. If we're talking music, I can stand up with you and I can go toe to toe. But now I'm in a room full of speakers, full of motivators, full of people that got all of these big companies and corporations and stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how do you navigate in a world that you don't know anything about? So I actually enjoyed it because they always say if you're in a room and you're the smartest person in the room, you shouldn't be in that room. And so for me, it was a learning curve, for me, because I'm in the room with greats. I'm hearing these conversations. I'm seeing how they interact, how they speak to one another, what they do, what systems they are using when they are having these meetings or when they are putting out these invoices and how he's formatting all of this stuff. I got to see all of that. I was handling from the scheduling to the editing of videos and a lot from letters and I mean just a lot of different things. And it was an amazing experience for me.
Wow. There's a lot of aspiring artists. I mean, above of what you just said there, like, what would you say? Like, it's a different time, different era, different ways of doing the world of business in relationship to your craft. But there's many people that want to come into the entertainment world, whether it's film and podcasting and singing. And what would you say?
To get into the entertainment world, you really have to, in my opinion, just start going to various events. So like now, when I'm still in the music industry, but when I first started, how you get started is you go to open mics. You see what songs other people are singing, because when you first start off, of course you might have your own songs, but people are going to know you more about the songs that they already know on the radio that's relatable, that they've already start singing to. So you get the crowd by singing something that people know, then you can introduce your own song. So I would say if you're a singer, get in the room, get to these open mics. If you're a musician, get on the drums, get on the keys, that type of stuff. If you are into films, which now I am into films, I start going to film screenings. I start going to screenings so much that I started having my own screenings now. So since I did my release of my film that I did at Studio Movie Grill here in Marietta, Georgia, I decided to do my film on the major screen for my release. I decided go big or go home. I'm like that with every single thing that I do. It sold out in 2 weeks. It was star-studded. Les Brown and so many other people came to show up for me, and I showed it on the big screen. So now I have a platform called BBR Indie Films, where I highlight other people, other filmmakers that are indie, and help them get on the big screen, because it is the best feeling in the world to shine and to see yourself amongst the regular films. I mean, your film is playing in here, and then you got Marvel's on the next room. That's where you're supposed to be. You see yourself where you're supposed to be. So again, if you are into films, go to these screenings, start, trying to become a PA, or try to work behind the scenes, or be a background actor to start off. And then when you get some money, start taking acting lessons, and whatever you want to do in that field, you got to learn from it, and you got to start taking classes. Well, that's what I would recommend. And then as far as podcasts, again, that's something I just jumped in. Go to Anchor, go to Podbean. There's so many different platforms that you can go through, and just start talking, figure out what your niche is going to be. Again, initially my niche was all over the place. Initially it was music, but then that became just mundane. And so then I started doing PR and interviews with marketing. But then I realized that's not really what I want my stuff to be about. So my stuff is all things entertainment. So now I'm interviewing award-winning producers and people in the music industry. I'm doing a little bit of both now. And with your book, even that's the same thing. I wrote my book in 5 hours when I went to Hawaii. I was at this event and Bill Walsh said, "Tell your story." And I had heard that a million times, but It didn't resonate until that day. But, I realized it didn't resonate because it wasn't meant to resonate. Things happen and you hear things when it's time for you to hear them, right? And so I was open to hear it that moment, and it felt like he was speaking only to me. It was like 200 plus people in this room, but he was talking to me. And when I went to Hawaii and we got stuck on one of those cruises in a big storm and we had to go out to sea for 6 days, I wrote the book in the 5 days, shut myself in the room and wrote the book. So I just say, just jump. I jump forward scared. I jump forward, not knowing what I'm going to do, not knowing how it's going to come together. But thankfully, I know people that have done some of the things that I want to do, and I have no problem calling them and saying, how did you do this? Or YouTube University.
So, when I hear you speak, I just hear two words. I hear no excuse. I just hear no excuse. I don't know if that's the name of your next book, or you want to change your podcast again or do another one. Come on. What else you got going on? I'm going to ask you that in just a minute, but I just hear no excuse. Somehow you found your way. You've had major setbacks and you found your way. Is there anything, because we've all had setbacks, whether you're in your sector or not, is there anything that you haven't shared with us, Butta, about that you resourced to keep going?
Yeah. So for me, my family keeps me going with anything that I do, right? So even when I have those moments where I feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? This isn't working. I start having those demons talk to me and making me feel like I'm not worthy to be in the room and different things like that. I start thinking about my kids and what I want to leave for my kids. I want to leave a legacy. I want them to know that this woman didn't stop. She is going for every single thing she can think of. Like what I feel in my heart is, if God gives you a design and gives you that dream and you can see it, if you can see it, then you can do it, because I feel like that's a building block for you. You know what I mean? And it tells you exactly what to do. That's the design. You might not have all the steps, but you got the image, and everyone is not going to see your vision, is not going to see your image of what you're trying to do, because it's not their vision. It wasn't given to them. It was given to you, Deb, to do what you're doing. It's given to me to do what I'm doing. So sometimes you have to guard yourself, because some people, because they don't understand your vision and because they don't see it, you're so excited, you want to tell them, and then they just snatch it from you. They snatch it because they don't get it. And sometimes that can crush you. But for me, I have learned that no one can take away anything from me. I'm going after everything. I might not get there, but you're not going to ever hear me say that I ain't tried. If I can see it in my head, it's mine.
Ooh, okay. So who produces t-shirts here or album covers? If I can see it in my head, it's mine. Someone write that down and remind me later. Send that to me, please. Oh my gosh. Darling, we could sit here all day and I would love to. Please curve this up with how can we, where are you? What are you doing? What can we go see? I know your tickets sell out like that for your showings, but tell us anyways, give us hope, because if we can see ourselves there, we'll be there. So tell us where, how, when we can find you, where we can look, and what do you got going on?
Definitely. So you can find me everywhere on all social media and on my website at Butta B Rocka. That's BUTTA BROCKA, Butta B Rocka. And my film, Finding a Perfect Guy, it's literally streaming on 16 platforms, including Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi, it's on Reveal. I'm trying to say the ones that people know the most, which Tubi and Prime, pretty much everyone knows about. So you can find it there. It's called Finding Perfect Guys, romantic comedy. My music is on all platforms at Butta B Rocka, and you can type that in. And my books, Fear of Failure. I have 2 children's books, The Adventures in Butterland and Kai. All of that is available on Amazon under Butta B. Rocka or Alethea Robinson. And my next BBR Indie Films is going to be January 10th. So if you happen to be in Atlanta, this will be the second one that we have done. The first one sold out. This one is absolutely going to sell out, and we are doing it at Studio Movie Grill. I have opened up a platform for indie filmmakers. I have a heart for indie everything. So I open it up to indie artists or indie filmmakers, sorry, and I let them submit for free. And we have different people from the industry. I didn't want to just talk to people in the filming that was actors, because if you have 3 panelists that's actors, they're all going to say the same thing. So I have an investor. I have at this next one, I have a music supervisor, and then we have an actor, so that you can get a full perspective. And each time that I do it, I have different people that come and speak to the filmmakers and everything. So we're going to get some deals done, especially with the investor. He's looking for 10 more films. So you can reach me on everything again at Butta B. Rocka, ButtaBrocka.
So if you are an indie film producer, or you know someone that is trying to get their film, because we all know someone that is, that's the place to be. Butta B. Rocka, we are so grateful that you joined us today. She will be in the book. She will be on the celebrity panel of March 8th or May 11th. You better come to both and see where she is. She is also going to bless us with another share in the 2024. So thank you so much for being. Let's show her some love. All
Thank
right.
you so much for having me. I do appreciate it, and I don't take it for granted.
No, absolutely. So I must say, Emily is my co-host. Do you have anything that you want to say about, I mean, I feel like I just felt like I drank 6 cups. I am so full, right?
Yeah. I mean, thank you so much. I found your story like just so interesting, and all the things you've had to overcome is just like, wow. Those are the things that I find so valuable about these types of summits, is you really get to hear more than kind of what we see, when you're on stage and getting to be this sort of perfect version of yourself. So thanks for really like showing that side of you to us. And then so funny, I actually previously worked on the cruise ships for Holland America as well. So I literally was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I've seen her. So that was just a small thing and like really incredible place for people to be able to start. And if there is anyone with that music background out here, I really loved your tips, and it's really cool to see how much you've been able to grow. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Emily. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Divas of Motown.
There you go, right? And Emily's in marketing, so who knows, right?